Okay, guys, we are back. The machine is working well, but I had experimented with a different OBS, so I need to go back and do some kind of tweaks on that. But basically, it's at least functioning. So now I've gone back to reverted to the old OBS. The stream should be working the way it was before, and we should be good to go. So, all right, here we are in a situation where we're a little bit low on time. Played a4 though. That's gonna confuse me a bit here. I could take on d4. Bishop d7 is also interesting. I guess bishop d7. All right, guys. Sorry about that, but I wanted to try the new OBS. I like the OBS Studio, but I don't have all the settings in the right places, so we'll just use the old one, no problem. The main problem with my stream the last couple days was my machine, and I fixed that problem. Crossing my fingers. It looks like it's okay. So okay now. So I think that we're okay. It's not the fastest frame rate in the world, but it's not a super fast shooter video game. Shoot 'em. If I take on d4, play bishop c6 here, yeah, this looks okay for black. Vasham Chess, hi. So guys, anyway, welcome everyone, welcome Euro, we're gonna start over again. It looks good. Everything's fine. We've got the early a4 by white. He kind of threw me with that. That's pretty unusual. I was a little distracted to try to find the optimal move for black, but a4 makes some sense. Queen f3 now. Looking for tactics. I don't see anything. Queen f3, wow. Okay. Knight d7. Man, this is reminding me of something. Who is Constant Change anyway? We don't even know who Constant Change is or where they're from. Has a lot of games though. I mean, knight takes e4. Knight takes e4, f5. That's probably a good way to get checkmated. I want to play e5, but it just drops a pawn. And I guess I could sack a pawn like that. He probably has some legitimate long-term compensation. Man, but I think the best thing to do is probably just play b5. White looks good here. Well, it looks like a pretty standard kind of position to me. Honestly, I don't think white looks bad. I don't think black looks bad. I don't think anybody made a mistake. a4 is a bit of an unusual move, and he threw me with that. What's up, guys? So normally I'll see a4 like before the bishop moves. The bishop's on c4, so you see instead of playing bishop b3, he plays a4. And sometimes the bishop will even like retreat to a2. But in this case, he plays bishop b3 first and then a4 later. And you'd think that would be like a really kind of vital tempo for white, but I didn't see any way to take advantage of it per se. We're in a little bit of time pressure because of our own incompetence with the online broadcasting software, but that's okay. It looks playable. He put the queen on f3. Sometimes queen d3 is better, sometimes queen f3 is better. The advantage of queen d3 is that it might stop this break I played here. Now in reality it probably wouldn't stop it because I would play b5 anyway. He would take, I would have pressure on e4. But sometimes the queen on d3 also, you know, it's not in the diagonal of the bishop on c6, so he'd have the option to like play. He'd have the option to play different stuff. Anyway, to make a long story short, wow. So rook e1. Do I have any kind of tactics like take on a4, e5? Not a lot of time here. Could play like b4, but I don't like going to a French structure, b4 and d5. Probably I should take on on a4 at some point. Try to create some open lines. Get him off of the e4. I don't know. White has more weaknesses than black, but he also has actively placed queen and rook. Queens and rook. Looking for some sort of tactic, but there's like nothing to attack. E5 actually looks like sort of strategic mistake here. If I play E5, I weaken the white squares like D5 a lot. Have a lot of time. B3. I guess knight D7's okay. Slightly passive move, but we need to do something here. Constant change though. We don't know who he is, and yet he's got a lot of games, so it's not a player who's like changed accounts or something. Okay, E5, wow. Oh, maybe he blundered. Played too fast. So I don't know. He just had a reasonable position but blundered. Yeah, it's... Unfortunately, rook d1, knight d7. I can just save my knight. Doesn't have that out, so to speak. I'm threatening bishop h4. Loses the exchange. But yeah, you could. Someone said they like white. White looks good here. I think white was slightly better, probably. It was sort of a typical position, though. Sort of hard to say I made a mistake. I don't know. You know, it looked like just an absolutely critical like line for this whole sort of variation. I didn't make any wasteful moves, so it's a little hard for me to accept that I could have been really worse. But again, maybe I didn't handle A4 the best. Let me know, guys, that everybody's all right. Jeroen, are you here? I missed that. I had to close the stream the first time. I had to restart it, so what's up with this position? Keep the knight at bay. All right, time. Time. Technical ending. Looks like very good winning chances for black. Opening requests for the Queen D6 Scandinavian. You want me to play the Queen D6? It's been a while. Can I just win a pawn here? Rook B5. Technical win. 4 against 2. It should be fairly straightforward to create 2 connect pass pawns here. Sorry I can't chat more, guys. I'm a little low on time. "15 seconds makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not used to doing this. I haven't done this in a while. Alright, so G3 check. What do I do? Whoa! Okay, time, right. Constant Change wants to win by time. He's really into the time. We just need to make some moves to gain some time on the clock, but it's hard to do with 3-second increments. Alright, mouse is real sticky. It's kind of like the bottom of my mouse is sticking to the table. Not the best move. Okay. That's made into. Alright, that was kind of a scary situation with 1 second. I almost lost on time. 6 challenges. Kyrgios Pes, Hunt the King, Asi passes, M47, Etat Suara, and Max123. I just want to thank you guys for being here, you know, and all ready to play. I'm sorry that I missed the stream on Monday and it's been so long. But I want to just appreciate, you know, how faithful you guys have been to the stream and stuff. So we're playing Kyrgios Pes. I'm playing all kinds of stuff with white now, thanks to you guys. No stream yesterday. I had serious computer problems, but we've got it sorted out. We're an amateur computer repairman ourselves. I managed to fix it. Kyrgios Pes, I'm not in the mood for one of those Tarash Frenches that you like so much. Okay, we got something a little different here. This is sort of a homemade variation that I made up. Bishop D3. It's like playing the Kopek system against the Sicilian, but it's the French. There are arguably like some ways in which the Sicilian and the French defense are sort of interrelated. I mean, the fact that you can play E6 and C5, both moves, at any point in those openings, make them kind of relatives in a way. I'm not playing yet. I need to study more so I don't blunder queen takes b7 again. Queen takes b7. Queen takes b7 again. What? I don't know what you were talking about. Oh, you're talking about a very, like, a simul game from a couple weeks ago? Is that what we're talking about? Bishop d3. I think I might have played this against Kyrgios once before. I should really save this for tomorrow's weird Wednesday stream when we play unusual openings. But I just wasn't in the mood for one of those super difficult, ultra complicated Tarash French with the closed structure that I've been playing against Kyrgios lately. I am playing e4, d4, c4, knight f3, but at the last tournament where I just went, I really didn't play any e4 games. I didn't find a good situation to play e4. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I played in the Hungarian Team Championship, and I played knight f3, and my opponent played c5, and I think I surprised him with e4 on move 2. A lot of people aren't expecting me to play e4 because I haven't played e4 seriously very much in the last years, and so that's the useful thing. Chernyshov, this tragic game I very stupidly lost in Zalakaros, which really determined the result of the tournament. Chernyshov played c5 against me when I played knight f3 against him, and it was very weird because he never does that, you know. So it was kind of like, where did that come from? And I could have played e4 against Chernyshov too, and I'm sure he would have been surprised. But at the end of the day, Chernyshov plays a couple different lines of the Sicilian. He plays like me. He plays the Rouse, or you know, black side of the classical Sicilian. I've also seen him play weird lines with like knight f6 and bishop d7, kind of an unusual line that I think maybe Kuprejcik played first. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't really sure I should play e4 against Chernyshov, whose systems are really pretty well worked out. But like Sunday, against my opponent, who's like a weaker IM, who plays all different openings and stuff, I was very confident playing, you know, transposing to an e4 opening. I had an interesting accelerated dragon, and in fact, now here, I have played this in Blitz quite a bit, but I don't really recommend this setup as being especially great for white. Anyway, I was droning on about playing e4 and people not being, you know, prepared for me to play e4. But yesterday or 2 days ago, we had an accelerated dragon where I don't think my opponent realized that I play the accelerated dragon like it's one of my main openings for black. So here we are, I'm playing white, and he's just like reeling off this variation that I've played for like 20 years. And I'm thinking like, man, that's kind of ignorant, you know? Like, I don't know if this guy prepared for me, but he definitely wasn't aware of the fact that he's playing like one of my main openings that I probably know better than he does. But anyway, it's a pretty easy opening to play, and so there's really, you know, sometimes it's actually hard to play against your own openings. If you guys have had that, have you guys had that experience? I mean, I find that it's actually very annoying and difficult to play against your own stuff. So, like, for example, I don't have a great score against the hyper-accelerated dragon when I face it myself with white. I don't know why that is. You'd think like you do better against things that you know, but for some reason I don't feel like I do all that well when I'm playing against openings that I play myself. Has anybody else had a similar kind of experience? Now, Kyrgios has played this pretty much perfectly. There are ways he could have played a little more aggressively, like maybe, where are we here? Instead of giving up this like tension in the center with d4, he could try. I've had a lot of people play a6 and b5. I think that might be the better way for black there. But this is equally totally reasonable for black, what he's done here. You like the French, but you seem to dominate me every time. Now, he went back with bishop d7. It's tempting to play a4, but I'm not really sure that it has any benefit. So I think I should just focus on the king side here. We could maybe play knight d2, knight e1. If you play a4, you're like weakening your queen side, so I think it's probably better not to do that. I mean, the fact of the matter is he can play like b5 and c4, and there's nothing I can do to really stop him. So it's probably better not to weaken myself anymore on that side and just focus on the king side. Now he's stopping me from playing f4. Man. You know, a4 now. Okay. See, he's trying to stop me from playing f4. I mean, I'm not sure that he needs to stop me. I mean, when I play f4, he's trading his bad bishop for my good bishop. So, is that necessarily, like, and he gets the e5 square for his pieces. So I'm not sure that black should be necessarily, you know, trying to stop me there. Now, he's let me play a5 on the queen side. He should have taken time to play b6. Or even b5. No, he couldn't play b5. Okay, b6. Now he's let me freeze the queen side. So now I have this closed position where he doesn't have a break on the queen side. He stopped my break with f4. You know, if he plays b6, he's probably slightly better in this position. But without b6 now, it changes the whole position. The Silman Donaldson book on Accelerated Dragons is a good book. So Donaldson is extremely diligent. I can't hold up a5, a4, so I'm not going to bother to try. I'm just writing that off. We get in f4. We hope that we have some play along the f file. Maybe some attacking chances. Who? Didn't see that move, and I never want to see it again. It's like the Fritz. One of these old versions of Fritz makes these stupid comments. Bishop g4. Okay, yeah, that's really a friendly move. Fortunately, I have some kind of resources here. I don't have to play queen d2. We can just play knight e2. Yeah. Kyrgios. Unfriendly move, bishop g4. Anyway, my knight was bad on g3. Sometimes. Actually, in the opening, he could have played like h5, h4. That is the normal way to try to take advantage of the knight on g3. So instead of castling, black can play very, very aggressive type of plans with like h5, h4. Another place where you might see that is like the g takes f Caro-Kann. In the main line of the Caro-Kann, after pawn takes e4, knight takes e4, knight f6. Some people try to play knight g3 against knight f6. And they're like right away black can play h5. So h5, h4, it's pretty much always on the table when you have a knight on g3 and black hasn't castled yet. Okay, so now we have to take back here. Structurally, we're a tiny bit better, but black's pieces are much more active. So, you know, I don't think there's any real advantage for white. Maybe long term. We have a time advantage. We have a better structure, but his pieces are active now. He's trying to win a piece on me here. But I don't want any part of that. Now my rook is a little bit separated from the rest of the family. But he took, and now I'm going to have to be careful. I mean, rook takes knight g4. The idea of knight e3. You can probably get rid of it. with knight g3. Got a 3 minutes to 45-second time advantage. I want to be able to get rid of this knight on e3. I have 2 ways to do that. 3 ways. We could sack the exchange. It's interesting possibility, but it's a little bit over the top. So I'll save that for another time. Black has played well. Still, he's not really that much worse. Close to equal. That's an excellent move, a5. Trying to get rid of that troublesome knight f5, knight g4. In that case, what's happening? Like queen f4? Yeah, let's try to play actively. Knight f1 is kind of passive, so given the opportunity to play either knight f5 or knight f1, I'd prefer to play knight f5 and then meet knight g4 with an active move, queen f4, while keeping him out of, e3. Silman Donaldson, yeah. The dragon is kind of a bad addiction. Well, we have to draw a big, there's an absolute different opening, the dragon and the accelerated dragon. Talking about the dragon where, you're casting, he dropped a pawn here. Is this a trick? Possibly a trick, but I think I can take it. Take, queen e1. Yeah, I mean, this could be a little nasty. No, I just go queen d2. I think I can take this pawn. I've been very materialistic lately. On Sunday, I snapped a pawn in this accelerated dragon I was playing, and black had a lot of compensation. Wow, you're scaring me, man. Where did that come from? I'm just eating more pawns. There's a check on e3. There's a check on c1. There's a mate, right? Well, yeah, I have rook f2, queen e1. Yeah, that's like a draw. That's a bad trick. Queen takes c5, queen e3 check, rook f2. Is it a draw? Rook f2? But he has nasty moves there, like rook a1. It could be like lost. No, then like g3. Yikes. It looks a little scary. It's a bit greedy to take the second pawn here, I think. So it's probably better to be on the safe side. This is a really greedy pawn to take. We don't need a second pawn. If that's going to make my pieces, look at how aggressive he is. If that's going to make my pieces be all like out of play and stuff, I'm going to pass, Wow. Well, okay, I don't see how you're coordinating your rook and your queen here. Queen takes a6. He just resigned, but I wouldn't resign. I mean, but it's hard to coordinate. All right, kind of a dubious opening by me there, especially like a3. I play that in blitz, but I don't think it's really very sound for white. Yeah, guys, you can challenge me by clicking on my name. All right, hunt the king. Let's play d4. So anyway, I was talking about openings. I played more of my knight f3 type of stuff at this tournament I just went to. Alright, I'm a little bit bored with the Bogo Indian, to be perfectly honest, with white. It's so hard to get an advantage against the Bogo Indian. I'm going to play knight to c3, which is more dynamic than knight f3. Deju. Yeah, you guys can challenge me at anything between 5-3 and 8-3. I had a pretty bad cold. I still have the remnants of it. That didn't make it easy to play in the tournament either, but okay, Nimzo. Let's play e3. I think this is, it's funny that traditionally this was the main line against the Nimzo, but it's a very subtle kind of move. I think most players don't really understand the e3 lines very well for both sides. Alright, bishop d3. Years ago, I studied with Roman Djindjiashvili, which most of you who watch the stream regularly have heard me say before. He's the one who got me into playing this line for white with bishop d3. And now, if you play knight f3, you transpose to like mainline Nimzo Indians. So mostly I think we were taking on d5. a3 is also possible there, transposing to a line of like the same-ish Nimzo Indian. But Jinji always like recommended that we play these lines with like knight on g to e2. Some places it's called like the Reshevsky variation, I think. Anyway, I've played this position for both sides, and it's often usually reaches like a typical kind of isolated queen pawn type position with the knight on e2 instead of the knight on f3. That's a weird move, knight c6. But weird in an interesting kind of way. Kind of Chigorin defense type of move. What am I doing here if e4? The problem is that black now only has one break. I mean, the most common move there is c5 for black. Now you have only one break with e5. If I castle e5, e4, I could just castle. Or e4 right away is also good. I would think e4 right away, maybe knight back to f6. So guys, what's up? What do you think of the excitement in the World Championship match? The last game was really the worst, huh? I mean, why don't they just play like an exchange French and trade the pieces on the e-file? That's what it was, basically. No, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. They're both afraid to lose, and there's a lot of pressure. So I think now it's just like rolling the dice. Carlsen is still the favorite, maybe even more so in the rapid play. But anything can happen, with the pressure on, and I just don't like it. It's not like a real World Championship. There's not enough games. The time control's too fast. It's better than a knockout tournament where like Halifman becomes world champion. But not to disrespect Halifman, he's a great player, but he's not a world champion. It's just like we've got to go back and take over the World Chess Federation and create a system of determining the World Championship where it's actually like about a serious match. Now f5, that's a kind of gutsy move, but he's freezing my intentions of playing e4. I like it. Nice try, man. Alright, well, I guess we have to be consistent here. I'd like to play f3. I mean, I guess it's just a standard move anyway in these type of positions. But I like f5. I think that's a move you're thinking outside the box a little bit with that move. You're creating some weaknesses, but you realize that it's important to get control of the center. And I think f5 is a good move. I think that was a really a good idea. And now black is probably okay because of f5. My only other reaction here would be, I regret now castling. I mean, in retrospect, I should have played e4. There's just no question. So you played f5, you stopped me, and your position is interesting now. Instead of f5, I could have played e4. I mean, instead of f3, sorry, e4, maybe. f3 is a little slow. Carlsen has never been given such a tough match. I don't think he's ever had a tough match in his life, man. Obviously. What tough match, man? He never had many matches at all. I mean, he doesn't even have much experience playing matches. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous, you know, if you compare chess like now and the so-called matches to the 70s, you know, or 80s, when there were like lots of candidates matches to qualify for, like, you know, other candidates matches. Match play is like just a lost art, man. I mean, Carlsen, you know, he doesn't play matches very much. Nobody does, you know. It's just a lost art. It's totally forgotten, you know. Anand didn't even care, you know. He just didn't even care. He just rolled over and died and collected his $1 million, and or whatever, you know. So of course Carlsen hasn't had a tough match before. I mean, it doesn't even, there is no such thing in today's chess anymore. But the match is stupid. I mean, 12 games is just like not enough to mean anything statistically. So now we have like a world championship in rapid play and then blitz. It's just totally a waste of time, in my opinion. I mean, entertainment value isn't very good. And actually it's kind of funny because if you think about it, maybe the argument would be to say like, well, the shorter match will be more exciting, you know, because more will be, you know, every game will be counting for more and more critical. But what it actually, the effect that it actually had on the match was interesting. So what did it do? Because every single game is more important. Like there's only 12 games, so like losing one game or two games is like devastating. What ended up happening? So these guys tightened up. Like they're afraid to do anything because like losing one game is like catastrophic. So this whole concept of making the match shorter to make it more exciting actually has the effect of making the match more boring, because the players are so terrified to do anything, to make a mistake, that they're taking zero risk in every single game. If you had a match with like 24 games or 30 games, then you'd see players like, you know, Korchnoi or Kasparov or Bobby Fischer actually like taking risks in their game and playing aggressively. Because you can lose one game and there's still a match to play after that. You know, now it was like Carlsen lost one game and it was almost over. So it's funny. 97, this move is really... So I think that the effect of the shorter match actually is detrimental and made the match like less exciting rather than more exciting. Feels weird to put Karyakin in the same league as Kasparov. Well, nobody's putting Karyakin in the same league as Kasparov. I mean, I think that Kasparov would have handily beaten the Karyakin, but in a serious match. He'd probably beat Carlsen too if you put them, you know, if you could theoretically make Kasparov in his prime play Carlsen in his prime. And the only reason I'm saying Kasparov is better is because he had so much experience in match play. If Carlsen actually had more experience like Kasparov did, I'm sure he would do better. But like I said earlier, it's just a forgotten art. There is no such thing as a serious match play anymore. It's just, you know, doesn't exist. So here we have interesting situation. Interesting situation. Hunt the king. You had a very strong move there, my friend. The bishop takes c3. Unless your queen gets trapped or something. I didn't see anything. So now I can take with the bishop. This wasn't my original plan, but we're going to make do, you know, with what we've got. So we're still better here. Bizarre position, though. So anyway, he's got knight f5 type stuff. Speaking of thinking outside the box here, I think I'm going to need to play a little outside the box here. He's going to be playing knight f5. Probably we have to just like go really psychopathic here. Whatever it takes. Oh, man. Maybe I can play like c4, c5. It seems like he has an answer for everything. It's really annoying. Damn. Feels like he has an answer for everything. And that's ridiculous. That's a really great point, actually, on the shorter matches. Yeah, I think it is a great point, and it's really important. You have to understand why these guys are playing like they are. You know, I think they're relatively boring players by style, compared to some other top grandmasters who are more sharp. Carlsen particularly. Karyakin plays more regularly like very sharp Sicilians and whatnot. What is this? You had to play queen h4 right away, forcing me to play rook f2. And then it's an interesting game. But here you just lost a piece. After queen h4 right away, it was very, very complicated. Rook f2, and then I guess knight back to h6. No, that doesn't work. You'd have to go back to e7. Okay, so queen h4, rook f2, knight e7. It's a game because your queen defends the h7 pawn. And maybe you can reroute. I guess white is better, but I wasn't really overly thrilled with the position. But yeah, so that's my big theory about the shorter matches. It's true. There's a reason why they're playing like that. Why they're playing with zero risk games. Although the last game I was really sickened by. I mean, you know, Carlsen is white. He's the quote-unquote world champion, and he plays the lamest possible variation with the white pieces, with a chance to win the match and end it. He plays like the lamest possible variation against the Berlin defense. I mean, this was really like the most disgusting game of the 12, I thought. All right, there's a lot of pressure. They're tired. I understand excuses. I have a lot of them myself. But come on, man. I mean, at least he's got to try a little bit with the white pieces and a chance to end the match, you know. Vichy is the best challenger. What are you talking about, man? He just goes there, he collects his $1 million and rolls over and dies. What kind of challenger is that? E4. Let's try a little modern defense. No, Karyakin did a great job. He's absolutely, in a sense, you know, I think if this was a boxing match and it was scored by points, Karyakin would win. He's absolutely, you know, credited himself. Vichy was, you know, he was pathetic. I mean, who am I to call Vichy pathetic? But, you know, we can all be critics, and that's what it's about. So, I mean, I know that Anand is a great player, but he didn't show it against Carlsen. He acted like he didn't really care. He was just there to, like, get the money and go home, you know. And Karyakin, and I'm not sure that he did it intentionally. I think that Anand just didn't have any confidence in himself against Carlsen for whatever reason. Whereas Karyakin really seems to have a lot of self-confidence. He may not be the second or third or even fourth best player in the world, but he believes he is, you know. And it goes to show, if you believe in yourself, I mean, I think it goes a long way. Anand just kind of like, he thinks Carlsen's a better player than he is. And so, you know, he has, you know, he thinks he's old. He thinks that he's, you know, kind of like losing it or something. I don't know. So he just didn't try his possible hardest. But Karyakin absolutely tried his hardest. And it's a credit to him. Carlsen might have one good weapon left against the Berlin and want to use it in rapid for maximum impact. It's possible. It's possible. I think, you know, playing a lot of tournament chess in my life, I'm thinking the reason for the quick draw in the last round was just that these guys are both tired. That's the excuse anyway. There's a lot of pressure, I guess, on them. Of course, I'm sure there are like conspiracy theories too. Bishop c4. I don't actually know this variation with h4. I'm just playing on intuition. I don't really give h4 a lot of respect. Like Shirazi used to play that. But I guess that it's viable, you know. So Bishop c4. Anyway, well, if the match isn't arranged by like underground forces or something, I guess Carlsen is still the favorite. Bishop c4. He should be, I think, slightly more favored in rapid than in regular, because he is very fast and very, very practical. You know, I think his strengths are a little bit magnified by the super fast kind of time control. c6 here. I don't know. It's an interesting system for white. I never really believed in it, but I guess it's absolutely playable. The World Championship also carries huge financial implications besides the game itself. So maybe they're stretching the match intentionally. Well, I mean, I don't know, you know. I mean, who's benefiting or not benefiting? I mean, if they really wanted to stretch the match, who wants to stretch the match? The players or the organizers? That's the question. I don't know. I mean, the organizers have to spend money on the tournament venue and stuff like that. I mean, one would assume that the reason why the World Championships are like 12 games rather than 24 is first and foremost to save money. I guess, you know, it would be logical. Of course, if you're playing in like Kalmykia or something, it doesn't really matter. But in New York City, it's a cost a fortune to have a venue like that. So I guess knight h3 now. The knight is going to be impossible to get rid of if I let it get into g5. So I normally don't mind making this kind of exchange. His rook is usually awkward in my experience. It has a lot of squares. Now what, like e6 or something? I'm going to have to play e6 at some point, one would assume. There's bishop g5. I can't afford to make any more weaknesses. Maybe I should hold off on e6 for a move or two. I don't know. e6, bishop g5, knight e7. Difficult to get the bishop off of g5 as well. So I kind of feel like white's better here. c6. c6. There's even like rook b3 type of ideas for white. It's kind of crazy. If e6, bishop f6, maybe that would be something to consider. Looks really bizarre. e6, bishop g5. Tough position. c6. Idea d5. I'm definitely worse here. I honestly have never studied h4. It's one of those moves that you just said, all right, I'll figure out something over the board. You don't go and like consult the chess database. At least I haven't bothered with h4. Conspiracy theory. Well, conspiracy theories are everywhere. It's pretty hard to ignore it. The problem is you have betting on an event, you know. When you have betting on an event like the presidential election or the World Championship of Chess, it's pretty hard to dismiss conspiracy theories as absurd. The problem is you have like people betting like millions of dollars on the outcome of an event. That makes conspiracy theories absolutely have to come into play. I mean, you would be ignorant to dismiss the possibility of conspiracy theories. If there was no betting, I mean, that's why I think there shouldn't be it shouldn't be allowed to have betting on political events. You know, personally, I think it should be outlawed, because it's just totally like immoral, and you're just asking for things to be like rigged. I mean, in world class football or soccer, how many matches are fixed and stuff because of sports betting? It's like a lot, and it's been proven. So why is the World Chess Championship any different? I mean, it's unfortunately a necessary thing to consider. Queen takes h4, but I don't think that Magnus Carlsen is going to fix a chess match for money. You know what I mean? The only way like any kind of conspiracy like that would float would be like if he was like forced by like with blackmail or something. But I'm just having fun here. I mean, I don't have any kind of theory that the match is fixed. I'm just saying like these kind of things you have to take into consideration. But no, I don't seriously. I'm not seriously contending that the World Championship match is fixed. I'm just saying you have to think about those things as possibilities. But anyway, if somebody outside forces put pressure on Carlsen to lose, like a boxing match where like the better fighter has to take a fall, something like that could happen. I don't think Magnus is ever going to throw a match for money because he has enough money. But if someone threatened him or something, what would he do? It would be kind of awkward. Let's say that. Please play a Grob. I don't play the Grob. I can't bring myself to play the Grob. No, I hopefully the chess match isn't fixed, but I wouldn't see any reason to think it was. Just throwing the possibility out there that I don't like the fact that there's betting on the World Chess Championship. But what can you do? It's a free world, right? Anyway, so I still stand by Magnus as the favorite. I'll probably lose because I always pick things wrong. But I'm going out on a limb and I'm going to say that Magnus is probably going to win it. Blitz or rapid? That's the question. It'll probably go down to the blitz. It's all fixed, right? They want to fix it for maximum excitement. No, just kidding. What's going on here? Like, White's just losing his mind? He's losing everything? E5? Yeah, White has messed this up. That's what I said about the rook is very awkward. Rook on f3. No, I'm just kidding. It'll probably, though, go down to blitz. The way this match has gone so far, they'll probably draw all the rapid games, and it'll be determined by like a... It'll be determined by 5-minute games. But anyway, I'm kind of bored with it, honestly. It's just like not really been a lot of good chess. So d5, we're dropping a piece there. Other than that, d5 is a good move. I mean, I like the idea of breaking. If you could get in d5 and break up my white squares, I would be in a lot of trouble. Thanks, guys, for joining me. We are just bantering about the World Championship and other stuff, but I'm only half serious. I'm talking about conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I just like to have fun with it. But you can never dismiss it completely. It's fun to speculate. Anyway, I'm just glad that Magnus didn't lose, because I think that he's a better player than Karyakin, and I just want to see justice done. But he's not an exciting player. He's not a personal favorite of mine. And I wouldn't mind seeing someone else become world champion, but I would prefer it with someone like Caruana or Kramnik, as I said long ago. But I think the whole world championship cycle needs to be overhauled, obviously. Or we might as well just go back to the knockout format. Maybe I'll have a chance. You kind of wanted the match to go down to the Armageddon. I think everyone does. And I think that's very possibly the way it's going to go. It's more exciting that way. And we'll go back to the conspiracy theories. They've planned it all along that it'll go down to the Armageddon. It's in their secret contracts for maximum excitement. How did I mess this up so badly? Well, you dropped a pawn on h4 and then the bishop on c4. Instead of rook f3, right? I mean, you should have played bishop g5. That was an alarming kind of position for black. It's very awkward. I wasn't sure if you play knight h3 or... But I guess it didn't matter if you played knight h3 or knight f3. In fact, because in actuality, I don't want knight d5. I was thinking about knight f3 instead of knight h3 in the opening, but then I go bishop g4 in any case, and I'm still going to trade my bishop for knight. And this is a good try. You have any sort of tricks here? I was going to play bishop f8. It's a good try, by the way. You really almost have something here. Knight check. But I don't think it should be enough. And bishop f8. This will be a little awkward for me. Do I have an alternative? I guess I could play like f5 or f6, knight check. That looks a little scary. I prefer bishop f8. Let you come into f6. This was the plan. Worst case scenario, I get an awkward rook on g8, but I'm up a piece, so it should be good enough. Yeah. Anyway, guys, it's good to be back. I just played a tournament and I did okay. I finished what I was supposed to finish in the tournament. What am I doing? f6, f5, castles, f5, right? f5 or f6. Actually, they're both probably good. f5. Alright, M47 is up next. Etat Suar, Max123, Loudmouth, who I don't think I've played before. Pretty strong player from New Zealand. Relatively, it's a new account. Mule Skinner. Alright, M47. Bronx Defense is here. Magnus might be better player, but Karyakin proved to be a better sportsman. What does that mean? He's a better sportsman. You mean like in the interviews and stuff like that? Well, world champions have a really high percentage of being bad sportsmen. I guess Fischer was a good sport for like forfeiting games and stuff like that. C4. Let's try an English opening. There's nothing more sportsmanlike than just like not showing up to the game in like the first round or second round or third round or whatever Fischer did. Well, I think Magnus is really disappointed with himself, but everybody's going to show emotion. I don't think that Magnus is in terms of sportsmanship, I mean, I don't think he comes close to some of the worst sportsmen I've seen at the chessboard. Knight c6. Didn't we have a game in the simul on Sunday before it got messed up? I got problems with my simul on Sunday because my computer crashed. It was like freezing up, and I lost about half the games on time. But prior to that, I think we had an English here where black played f5, d4, which is an interesting line. I mean, like, Vishy Anand is a great sportsman, but he also, like, didn't seem to care about the match at all, you know. So it's hard to find both a great sportsman and intense competitor. f5. I think Karyakin has really proved himself, you know, to be a top player. f5. So it wasn't you, though, m4-7. That's the weird thing about this, right? Wasn't it somebody else who played this variation? I thought it was a different player. It could have been you, though. I don't recall. Let's see. This was a game where I was black. That was not it. So it wasn't you. Thanks for the game, man. You're welcome. You love your position at the start. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, looks like bishop g5, and I can't play like f6, so I have to play knight e7 or move my queen, and objectively white looks better. But keep in mind that what did I play in the game the other day? I guess knight e5, or did I play knight g5? Now I don't remember. I think I might have done knight e5 for some reason. I don't usually play that in these positions. I don't know if I've told you guys before, if we play knight g5 and black plays d6 here, this is the shortest game I ever lost, against Alex Cherniak in like 1992. I played in a chess club championship in Boston. I was already like 2,300 FIDE, and I played knight g5, d6, e3, dropped a piece with queen takes g5. I spent literally like 5 minutes on the move e3 because I was sitting there thinking about whether it was better to develop with a setup based on a fianchetto or like a French type position with e3. And after debating and debating and debating like literally 5 minutes without having a concept that I was going to like drop a knight on g5, I just like played e3 and dropped my knight on g5. And then everybody thought I was on drugs, but it was just like in another world, you know, thinking about like these strategic concepts in the position, and just totally forgot that my knight is unprotected on g5. Knight g5, bishop g5 is another move. I'm not a big fan of bishop g5. I don't understand that move, really. I think it's one of the main moves in this position, but it's also kind of freeing black's position with exchanges. So maybe we had this before with m4-7. I don't remember. I think we probably did once before, but not recently. There are many variations with like f5 and e4 in these closed Englishes, but generally like they're played with black not having the knight on c6. So the knight on c6 is kind of like a special situation, because usually in these big clamp type formations, black does like d6, c6, knight a6, knight c7, and then tries to reinforce the center with the knight on c7, like guarding d5 and trying to support d5. So the positions where black has a knight on c6, as he does here, are a little more like different and more rare. So I think we've had bishop b4 against somebody, and I don't know if it was you, m4-7, but bishop e7, it seems like a reasonable move. Guys, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Nothing new there, but if you haven't already checked it out, check it out. Again, Video Chess Training on YouTube. I'm back to the office after being away for over a week, so I will be uploading like streams to the YouTube channel, and try to create like a new video maybe once a week where I'm talking about maybe some games from the stream or analyzing something else. Oh, m4-7, so we played c4 g6 on Sunday. Oh, it was c45, knight c3, f5, d4, and you said knight c6 would be better, so you tried it now. Okay, cool. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as the Grand Prix attack with white against the Sicilian. Basically, the earlier you play f5, the riskier it is. I didn't remember that we had that game. We had knight c3, f5, d4, right? That's supposed to be slightly better for white. There are variations like ed, queen takes d4, and then queen e3 check in some positions is a key line. So here now, I guess bg5 or g3, even f3 is possible. I think f3 is a move that maybe appeals to certain players who like maybe specialize in, say, like the French defense or something. But f3 for me, yeah, f3 has always been a move that kind of, you know, another weird move here. I was thinking like you could even play knight, nah, not knight g1. I was gonna say knight g1. That's kind of ridiculous. Nah. All right, bishop g5. Yeah, you just started to drop pieces in panic. I don't know what happened, Aussie passes. But I'm getting stronger, you guys. Have to watch out. I've had a lot of practice. Actually, those tournament games that I've been playing, like 9 tournament games in Harkon, and then again, I played on Sunday. So since the last stream, basically, I've played 10 serious tournament games, and I feel like it's making me stronger. I've had a fairly solid run. I think since we started playing this fall, I've played 9 tournament games and 4 team championship matches. I have like 5 wins. Is that right? 5 wins and 7 draws and 1 loss. But I didn't tell you guys about how I lost to Chernyshov. Oh, by the way, guys, if you want to check out my games from the tournament I played, I created a study in my list of studies. There's a public study under Sparkle Horse on lichess. If you're interested in checking out the games I played at the tournament I went to, you can go to my account and look at my studies and see Tinkish Cup, Harkon, Hungary. I listed all the games I played in there. I did lose 1 game, but excuses are like orifices, anal orifices. We have, actually they're not, because we have a lot of excuses, right? We only have one anus, but we have a lot of excuses. So they're not, the comparison isn't really appropriate, I think. I have a lot of excuses when I lose, but honestly, we don't want to hear about that. Alright, should I take this guy on b6? Anyway, I lost a game. I wasn't really happy about it. I had a really good position against Grandmaster Chernyshov. But anyway, never play for a draw. If you guys want to draw a game, get a position of strength and then offer a draw. Never offer a draw to a stronger player, like in an equal position. Try to offer a draw in a better position. Then they won't refuse. But actually, you shouldn't do that either. You really shouldn't offer draws in better positions ever against anybody. So, but lately everybody's offering me draws and I'm declining. I don't know why there's this trend. Almost all of my opponents offer me a draw at some point, and no matter what their rating is, they're offering me draws, and I'm like, no, I don't understand. I was at this tournament, and almost every single opponent I had who was lower rated than me offered a draw. I don't understand why do they think I'm going to give them a draw? I don't understand. Like, they're rated 2,100 or 2,060 or 2,200. I'm going to lose a lot of rating points if I agree to a draw. I don't understand why people keep offering me draws. I mean, it's one thing if somebody is like the same rating as me or something like that, like they're 2,400. They want me to beat King Crusher here on lichess. Bishop g5 would have been better looking at the computer analysis now. Yeah, I think so, Aussie passes. Looks like white's better. It's hard. What I wanted to say about that, though, that h4 modern we just played, what I wanted to say about the position was, one thing that I've been working a lot on my game lately is the concept of knights and bishops, you know, different kind of positions where knights are better and bishops are better. And I think that I, like a lot of people, have in the past and even now, I think, what am I doing here? Right. So, had to calculate. Very important line here. I've had a tendency of overvaluing bishops. And a lot of my students also do that. And a lot of players tend to overvalue the bishops. They are stronger in some positions, but not all. And that position, Aussie passes, where I gave up the bishop on h3, it's a position where there's 16 pawns on the board, and it's a pretty closed position. I'm playing kind of hippopotamus type of situation. So it's hard for the bishops to necessarily open up and be very powerful. So it's not clear that the bishop pair is necessarily an advantage or not. But I think it's also not a locked structure. So you do have potential to get an advantage with the bishop pair. It's not like the pawns are real locked and the knights have outposts either. So it's sort of like it's still up in the air whether the knights are going to be better or the bishops. But I think that the more important thing there is that you have a little more space, and probably that's the most important factor. You know, king safety and space. I think you stand better there. Okay, now this is an interesting move, knight e8. Rather than like the lazy move h6, he wants to trade bishop for bishop. Talking about knights and bishops, right, guys? He wants to trade bishop for bishop rather than knight for bishop. I've seen knight g4 in similar positions. Obviously here that drops a pawn. So he goes with the more passive knight e8. And then I'm looking at h4, sacking a pawn, but I don't really see anything, so I don't have an option. Basically, it's like a kind of closed Sicilian or French defense. I have my setup that I like to play with the knight on f4, and white stands better here. It's not clear where I want to castle. Another thing is f3, like I was talking about before. A lot of players who play the French defense are comfortable with that break, but I think it's a little debatable because it's attacking the head of his pawn chain. It weakens my position a little bit. Also, there's g5, so I'm gonna go with h4, which is why I didn't castle already. I'm usually playing this sort of setup for white, so it's kind of like a Gurgenidze Caro-Kann, where we don't necessarily castle. We can castle by hand in some variations with like g3, king f1, king g2. Most often, though, this bishop is like on c8, and I'm used to playing this kind of position with like black playing c6 or something like that. So it's a little weird to think about like putting the king on g2 in this sort of position. Actually, I'm a little bit unsure. Maybe my king really belongs maybe on d2, and we can play it more like a Caro-Kann type. Queen b3 I'd like to play, but French defense. Queen b3 I'd like to play, but I want to get in the pawn out to b4, not to block my b pawn to influence the center. And the setup I'm looking at is something like queen b3 and maybe putting the king on d2, as it can go in the Caro and the French in some positions. And I play queen c8. It looks like black's thinking about playing maybe c5 here, but I'm not sure if that's even a good thing for black. c5. I can play c5 myself. I feel a little bit behind in development. I'm actually getting in trouble on the clock, too. Queen c8. What a strange move to play. Why would he do that? He wants to play that. He has to want to play. It has to be because he wants to play, you know, c5. But actually, this is pretty complicated. Let's see what he does. Yeah, now if I take with the b pawn, he has a pretty good strategic plan. So I was thinking of taking the other way, which is pretty risky in a sense, taking away from the center. Opposite his queen. And then queen b8. Wow, man. Alright, I'm going to castle kingside now. I think the time has come. Or I can try to castle kingside, I guess. Pretty bizarre position, honestly. Knight c6. Heading for e5. What I can do about it? Well, it's not like it's going to crush me or something if he goes to e5. It's a nice square, but that's all it is. We have more space. That's a passive move, though. c6. Knight h6, knight g4. Well, I'm running out of time. Yeah, that move, I expected the other one. All right. A lot of space here. But I thought he would put the queen on d8, honestly. I was surprised by that. Man, I didn't know what to do. I was about to lose on time. I needed to make a waiting move, but I didn't know what to do. Wow. All right. Totally bizarre situation. He's killed his bishop, though. I thought he was going to play bishop a6. Rook there. Okay, he just hung everything. Yeah, a little bit. I thought it was reasonable, but both of us started to make some kind of weird moves toward the end. And for 7-10s to get in time pressure like me, yeah, Asit Pass is talking about the pawn on h4, bishop g5 idea in the modern defense. Yeah, you can't let the knight go to g5. It's just too difficult to get rid of it once it gets to g5. It's a very, very dangerous piece. That's kind of the whole idea of White's play after h4. This idea also occurs like in the King's Indian, some variations of the Petrosian King's Indian, where White does like a very early h4 type of stuff to get the knight to g5. It's Atsur. All right. So I've been playing like mostly King's Indian type setups, and it was funny in the last round of my tournament in Harkon, I played the veteran Grandmaster Ivan Farago, and we have a lot of mutual respect for each other, and I think most of the games have all been draws. We have a similar kind of positional style, but I had the feeling Ivan might try to play for a win against me in the last round. He was white, and I did a funny thing against him because I always play the Queen's Indian against him because he's pretty good against the King's Indian. He has the Averbach system. He plays the classical variation. He has several different lines that he plays in the King's Indian. And so I didn't know if he would want to draw or want to try to beat me. But he's getting pretty old, and I was hoping for a draw. So this is my last tournament game, last round of my tournament I went to, and Farrago played like d4, knight f6, c4, and when I want a solid game, I always play like e6 and Nimzo, Queen's Indian type of stuff. But if I play for a win, I usually play g6, and against Ivan, I was like messing with him, so I actually like reached for my G pawn, but then like took my hand back and like looked at him and smiled and played E6, you know, because just as a kind of joke. But okay, F3. It's I wouldn't want to play the King's Indian against Farrago. He's very tough against that. C5. This is this gambit that's existed for 20 years, and it's, I think, one of the black's best ways of playing against the same-ish. But white can play, he can take the pawn or he can decline it and try to play for an advantage either way. Basically. So guys, tomorrow is going to be Weird Wednesday. We're going to play unusual openings here on the Blitz stream, Blitz and Classical stream, with unusual openings tomorrow. Again, Weird Wednesday. We're going to be streaming Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Again, I'll have a simul at 6:30 p.m. CET, or 1830 Central European time. Every Sunday, I usually do a simul. 20 players. I have another tournament game on Sunday here, the Hungarian Team Championship, or the Budapest Team Championship. So when I have a really tough day on Sundays, I'll tend to try to keep the simul down to 20 players. And if I'm well rested, I'll do 25. What else is new? You guys have any questions or comments, or excuse me, any kind of any chess related questions, feel free to ask. We have another hour for the stream. So far, so good. King Crusher. Knight c6. So Queen d2. Yeah, so here there is a bunch of different ways for black to play. For me personally, I have more options than most players because I play the black side of the Marazzi. A lot of King's Indian players don't have that luxury. So they wouldn't consider to be able to play like c takes d here. But for me to play c takes d in this position, it's sort of natural. I think the theory is Queen a5, the main line. Queen a5. And then there are different possibilities. Castle's queenside, or maybe rook d1 for white. But in any case, there was a recent game, I'm thinking of a different kind of position, but how can I draw a parallel? Mostly, it's considered very dangerous for white to castle queenside in these kind of positions. If you look at the Olympiad games, there was a game where Sam Shanklin did something kind of mental, like he castled queenside in a similar type of structure. Now if this guy was on my team, in a team championship kind of situation, I'd be very, very angry with him, for doing something like that. I mean, I think he was playing Colin McNabb. It was the USA versus Scotland, and Sam Shanklin just castled queenside in a really crazy sort of way. And he was lucky not to lose to McNabb, honestly. It was a draw, I think. But, that's okay if you want to do that in a kind of like private, individual tournament, something crazy. But you don't want people going nuts like Richard Rapport, doing mental things like crazy, wild, bizarre, and risky sort of things in a team championship. or team tournament kind of situation. Castle and queenside here for white. It's playable, but it's a little dodgy. I really don't think that you want to do that with a c pawn forward. It's not like it's not a typical dragon. This is actually a Marazzi, not the kind of situation you want to castle queenside normally. Now white might be threatening b4 here. Probably not the big deal though. Not a big deal. I guess if I play bishop c6, b4 b6 would be okay for black, but it's a little passive. So I'm going to go ahead and play a5. Play a skill. You're a chess novice. You don't care even where to begin to get his. Oh, I don't know even where to begin. Well, yeah, it takes time. I don't care. I always think it's I don't care when people write IDK. I don't know why that is. Why do I have that idea? All right, G4. Now we're going into Richard Rapport territory again. It's like, this is kind of like castling queenside. I just, I think castle's there, kingside, totally okay. Now black can play h5. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't really think that white's attack should be that strong. Let's see, h4 there. There are some lines though. There are a few lines in the Marazzi where white does play like h4 and g4. I've seen, for example, like Gregory Serper do it. The problem with h5 for black would be, well, first of all, on some lines he can play like bishop takes f6 and then take on h5. And I'm not sure that's really good for me. Probably it's okay though. I could sacrifice a pawn. So h5, and if h3, maybe h4 is possible, something like that. I don't know though. The other possibility is bishop c6, h4, knight d7, h5, bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c5. Am I going to get mated? We have to be a little bit careful here. h5 or bishop c6. h5 or bishop c6. h5, g5, knight h7, bishop c6, h4, knight d7, h5. Maybe I could close the position with bishop takes d4 and then g5. So white's playing pretty maniacally, but I think that black should have enough resources to defend this. And in the end of the day, if we reach an endgame or something, white's going to be a little bit overextended. That would be my general hope, that if we do survive to an endgame type scenario, white is going to regret like moving a lot of pawns up because they'll have significant weaknesses. So it's like a Sicilian. You really need to you need the attack to be successful for white. It seems kind of counterintuitive, to trade off this defender of the king's side. And it is, in fact. But it's also white's best piece, you know, so it goes both ways. So now he's threatening to break through with a simple g takes h, g takes h. He could have some problems here. I was counting on queen. Was I counting on queen d4 check or something stupid like that? He's just taking, so I can play what? Knight f6 here? Knight back to f6. I wonder if my key could walk up the middle of the board. That looks kind of crazy. A little crazy. Rook h8 is last. You know, if I have to, I'll play rook h8. If I don't see anything better, rook h8 will be the choice. Taking on h5 looks unhealthy. Something like f6 isn't good. Knight f6 though. Knight f6, g5, knight takes h5, knight f6, g5, knight f6, take g5. Knight f6, take, queen h6 check. Knight f6, take, queen h6 check, king g8, followed by g5, knight h5. Alright, let's try knight f6. It looks actually... I don't really want to play rook h8 and have my knight... I mean, have my rook trapped on h8 after h6 check. And that's why this is preferred. But this is very, very touch and go. I'm almost getting checkmated here. Maybe I am. Maybe I am getting checkmated here. Queen b6. What if I take, no? Rook h8. Now rook h8. Queen b6, I guess. There is a lot of threats along this line here. I'm not sure if he had better. He may have. But castle's queenside looks very logical. I have to do a little bit of research on this variation. Not really thrilled with the way this went down now. I get checkmated if I take with the h-pawn. We have to take this way. So now, king g8. Only move. The queen here is saving the day. This diagonal is critical. I have rook f7. Rook f7 is the other defensive idea I need here. Bishop on c6. This kind of counters the knight on c3. I think he should have gone for this a move earlier instead of castling queenside. Maybe gone for take queen h6 check first. In that line I may have been in serious trouble. Maybe even lost. But now it looks like I have resources. G5 losing the knight? No, I mean I'm going to H5. Blocking his threats. So rook H1. If queen D4 here, or rook F8, or rook G7 as well. And maybe rook G7 and the other rook to F8. I want my king to have some air, you know, if it needs to run away. I don't like rook F8, it feels claustrophobic. Like my king, he can sack his queen or something and checkmate me. So this feels, we've got a little bit more air. Now the queen there. Wow. Rook H7. H6, that's H6. We shift to what is basically like a blockade strategy. Man, dude, pretty hardcore. Why didn't I play B5 there? Well, you had queen takes A5 maybe? Damn, dude. Are you fast enough? This guy's pretty strong. What a game. Took that way. Trading queens just to be on the safe side. Whoa. What was that, a mouse slip? Alright, it was a mouse slip. You meant to play queen takes queen. Queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. It looks like white is better after rook h4. This is... yeah, this was a silly move by me. Queen f4 probably. A good game though. Good game. It's a little like late in the game to give you a take back. Alright. But I think white was probably winning if you didn't castle queenside, but played instead. If you did that combination first with take on g6, take on g6, f takes, queen h6 check, king g8, and now g5 right away, you can play rook takes, g5, knight h5, rook takes, h5, g takes h, g6, pawn takes g6, queen takes g6 check, king h8. I think I'm just getting checkmated there. So I don't know. I think that that's probably winning for white. I did something seriously wrong. We need to improve the defense there. Fianchetto rook is fine. Fianchetto queen is also okay. What you don't want is like a fianchetto knight. Yeah, well, it was... both of us were very low on time. But he missed his chance, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with that earlier g5 before castling. But I think he's still better at the end there. He's probably winning a pawn. Although he has a bad bishop, I still think white is much better in the final position. If he, you know, if I give him a take back and we play that ending. Queen f4 was kind of just me though, panicking because we had no time left. I should make some sort of normal move there. I guess king h8, getting the king off the white squares. I won theoretically, but it wasn't convincing. So knight f3. This is the modern move, which a lot of people are playing. I think that e takes d has traditionally been the main line for white, but the problem is that black has a pretty solid position in those lines. I think that's why we see a lot of players not going into that. No, I've seen c3, but I don't really like that, to be honest. I don't understand what c3 is about. It looks like a stupid variation, honestly. All right. So I don't have any real big respect for c3. White's probably equal after that, but I don't see how you can play that for an advantage, really. So we're back into, I guess, this is the standard type of variation. Bishop b5. If queen e7 check, queen e2. Last game was equal before my slip, computer says. Yeah, I thought I was slightly worse. It's good. But I think he could have just killed me with it. I don't know what I did wrong. I guess I have to play some h5 or something that I was talking about. Knight f6 is a bit unusual here. Normally the knight goes to e7. So this could transpose some kind of weird, almost look like a Marshall variation of the Sicilian. I guess I should castle. Worry about. He has to worry about the e file in this position. Open file. Pretty important here. My variation with rook takes h5, g takes h, g6 is interesting. I think, yeah, it looks scary. I mean, I don't think I can defend that, can I? So now I take on c5 and gain a tempo. Missed mate in 2 for white. Instead of rook h2, what? g5? What's Toxic Piggy talking about? I don't understand, man. I mean, my knight's on h5. How am I getting checkmated on h7? Not quite sure what you guys are talking about there. Anyway. My knight f6 move was a blunder. Yeah, rook h8 though. Rook h8 is a catastrophe strategically for black after h6 check. Of course I know I can play rook h8. You don't lose quickly with rook h8. You lose slowly but surely if you play rook h8. No, it's not a blunder. I mean, I think that the position's already bad for black. You know, so yeah, okay, maybe it's a blunder, but anyway, I'm lost. If I have to play rook h8, then anyway black's position is really, if not lost, like extremely unpleasant, and only a computer could probably save it for black. Knight a5 here. Okay, I guess we hold on to the pawn on c5, or try to. Your blunder in last game was knight f6. Thanks, Future Suicide, but that's what I was just trying to say. It's not really a blunder if you have two moves and both of them are bad. You know, I think the blunder was before that, getting that position in the first place. rook h8, h6, check, king g8 with a rook on h8 is like strategically catastrophic for black. It's just a matter of losing quickly or losing slowly. So if you want to really look for the blunder, I think you have to look a little earlier, like in the previous moves. Whether you want to play h5 at some point to slow down white's attack. That's my real blunder in that position. Black's play has to be improved prior to that position. Maybe instead of knight d7, we have to play something else. Queen c7 here. Quite an original setup for black here. Queen c7. Threatening knight g4 in some positions. Not really. I'm not sure what he's threatening. I don't think he's really threatening anything. Bishop e2 looks like a very solid move. For example. Actually, you know, I just realized something. That this bizarre move is slightly irritating. It's probably okay. What will I do with that guy? Would be good to make some kind of developmental move here. Queen d2. Queen d2. And then knight c4 anyway. Queen c3. Bishop takes c4. Queen d4. Queen d4. Bishop d4 voluntarily, maybe? Maybe we preemptively play bishop d4. Alright. Tough to make a decision. Articum says plus 1.3 before knight f... You mean knight f6? Yeah, I mean typically with the engines 1.5 is critical, I agree. But it's still horrible once you get to like over 1 is like not a position that you should be playing, you know. So I never want to get into a position where I'm minus more than 1 pawn ever. That's a complete failure if you get into that position. We definitely never want to have an opening position that's like worse than like 0.8 or something like that. I mean, then it's an utter failure if it's around a pawn or more. We've got to find a better way earlier. Yeah, I guess rook h8 would have been a better move, but it's horrible anyway. It's a really weird position. Do we win a piece here? Can we win a piece here? The main move was not rook h8, but king h8 instead of knight f6. Wow, king h8. Can't imagine getting away with king h8. King h8. Phew. That's not not usually seen in that kind of position, but possible. It looks crazy to put the king on h8, but if that's what the computer says, I guess it has a reason. So we win a piece here. Anyway, what I'm really interested in the last game is just understanding what I did wrong in the opening. I think objectively we have to go back to putting my bishop on d7 in the first place. If you guys look at that Marazzi where white's played an early f3, it's actually a King's Indian, same-ish variation. But if we think about it logically, bishop d7 is probably the wrong plan because white's already played f3. So I should set up like it's actually a normal dragon and put my bishop my bishop belongs on e6, not on d7. So if we go back to that game, if I choose to play against Itatsuar, that variation, after knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, the wrong move is, the first mistake for black is playing bishop to d7. I should play bishop e6 in that position. The problem is, if he chooses to then castle kingside, my bishop is misplaced. So maybe the truth is that we should just we should just not play c takes d, I guess. But it should be playable for black though. Better to play queen a5 and just keep all the pieces on the board. I didn't expect white to play this attacking type of game there. What's the best here? Trading pieces, maybe? No. Allowing any counterplay here? Bishop g4. Well, yeah, I think it's time to end the fun in this position. Bishop takes f6. No more attacking pieces. It says you would give up the g-pawn and play on. Well, I mean, some positions I might be able to do that. Absolutely. If I had the bishop, a strong bishop, for example. But I think that the opening... Okay, I played c takes d. I mean, queen a5 is by far the best. It's not a normal Marazzi. He's played f3 pretty early, and so he played it well. As I said, I've seen Serper and some other grandmasters play that way. There was some Serper Perelstein game, I remember. But it's usually like a different order of moves in a normal Marazzi. I've never seen it happen out of the King's Indian before. Usually, the line I'm thinking of is actually a Gurgenidze Marazzi. Alright guys, we've got time for basically like 2 or 3 more games. Loudmouth, Mule Skinner, and then that's probably it. Never played Loudmouth before. It's 2136, relatively new account. But it's good that Itatsuar played that against me because I had no sense of danger really that was a serious line for white. I didn't think that was a real possibility. But it looks like that was the best. G4, how he played it, not castling right away. Nimzo, pretty strong player, 2136. So I decided to play a solid defense for black. Now, I often play c5 or castles here, but I don't know which I prefer, honestly. c5 allows the Rubinstein, which you might want to avoid. c5 92. That's a kind of tricky line that I've played a lot with white. So Loudmouth's playing like me in a previous game. This is the same as an earlier game. that I played with white. Ironically, we don't play very many like Nimzos with white, but oddly enough today we had the same. I think black played maybe d5, but similar. Where is the rule like 50 games? And yeah, but he has like 50 games combined or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's got like 100 games altogether. Okay, they're not like. It's up to me, man. I mean, it's totally. It's a judgment call, you know. He's got almost 50 games. He's got like 35 games, 30 plus games in each rating category. 38 blitz games. So, it's not like he has like 25 games in one. It's really just a guideline, you know. It's not like written in stone that it has to be 50 games exactly. I just want to make sure that, for the most part, we're not playing people who are trolling me. Never mind, I just tried some variation. King h8 already come. I just don't think that if we have to play King h8, it's normally okay. King h8 sounds like a dangerous idea. Rook h8 would have allowed me to not get checkmated for sure. But the problem is, after h6 check, King g8, it's very hard to get that piece back in the game ever. So black has like a very, very serious long-term positional. We're talking about the game previous to the last one in the Marazzi. So Loudmouth, the last time I played a strong player in this line was against Abhijit Kunte from India. But I think I was white in that game. I actually lost to him with white. And the last time I played with black was against some 2200 at Foxwoods, maybe like 6-7 years ago. It's solid for black, but very difficult to play for a win, this type of position. But if I was desperate to win, I would play the King's Indian or Modern Defense or something more dynamic. The Nimzo is basically, it's a very solid defense, but in many variations, black has difficulty like generating winning chances. So it's not something that you play all out for a win with black. I mean, it's not as boring as some openings, but or not as solid as, like, you know, playing for a win in the black side of the Queen's Gambit declined or something is really impossible. But the Nimzo, you have a little bit of dynamism, but you know, it's still this kind of variation. For example, if I was playing another strong player, I mean, I realistically would be content with a draw with black. I'm just trying to remember if I don't think I've played this position with black against anyone strong. As I said, I played Kunte with white. We had this position, this exact position. I don't remember if Abhijit played bishop d6 or bishop e7 here. I guess he played bishop e7. But maybe bishop d6 is a move that you can consider. I guess this is probably like theory. Knight takes d5. It's but it's not a very ambitious move. It may be recommended by the books or something. Symmetrical pawn structure. It's probably equal. Maybe white has some kind of tiny computer-like advantage. But when I'm white, I normally don't want to get this kind of symmetrical structure. Difficult to win. I guess you could take with the queen on d5. I didn't really seriously consider it. I don't know why, actually. Well, he can play bishop b3 and d5, but queen takes should be considered here, I guess. I just kind of wanted to stabilize the position with e takes d, but actually There's nothing wrong with queen takes d5, probably. We have to watch out for queen d3, of course. Rare's, I'm talking like Astro from the Jetsons. We're always going to play g6 when he attacks us and threatens mate on h7. I would consider myself more like I don't want to lose than I want to win. Well, that's one of my problems, Mr. Articum, that I have that problem too. And it's a handicap. It's not good. We should definitely want to win more than we don't want to lose. And I've been battling that for quite a long time. You know, for some players who are really like maniacal style players, you know, losing is just part of the game, and that's a different mentality. You know, I don't like to lose in any game, and that's the problem. So we start running into these situations where not losing becomes more of a priority, and this is like sports psychology we're talking about now. I mean, believe me, I've had conversations. I had a sports psychologist at one time, and he was very good. But one of the conversations I had, like many times with him, was this whole concept of my battling my demons with like wanting, you know, more to not lose than I want to win. And this is a huge issue competitively for a lot of people. Alright, so now we have knight b4, which he didn't prevent. But there's some questions about it all. You know, like, he's got this very nasty pressure along the file. I mean, I'm not really sure that I want to do knight b4. You know, objectively, maybe it's better to develop some pieces and forego that, you know. Like queen b6. Can I snipe a pawn? Bishop f5, just trading the white square bishop for bishop, keeping my knight is certainly a legitimate play. You know, I think this is again, knights and bishops talking about this. Again, is this the right decision? You know, it's so tempting to go there, grab the bishop, but then all of a sudden he's got this really nasty play along the file. Is that really the right idea? Plus the knight on c6 is putting kind of key pressure on the pawn on d4. I would be more inclined to play like bishop f5, maybe trade that guy, but I think perhaps queen b6 here. Because we do have like shadow pressure on f2, and it's developing a piece. We've got threats against b2, d4. Knight on c6 is blocking his play along the c file. It's also putting pressure on d4. This going knight b4 may be a sucker move. Guys, we're going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. CET with Weird Wednesday, which is the day when I play unusual openings, play more unusual stuff, try to play gambit lines, wild openings like the King's Gambit and whatnot. Try to encourage you guys to play kind of unusual stuff as well. Why it should matter to the point if a best play game is drawn. There's nothing wrong with draws. It's part of the game. Recently, in the first Saturday Grandmaster Series here in Budapest, the organizer decided to add this like rule where you can't agree to a draw in less than 30 moves. But I think it's absurd. Like, there's no cash prizes. The tournament is for norms. And, you know, if people want to agree a draw, they're going to make a draw no matter how they make a draw. If they have to, they'll arrange a way to like make a threefold repetition. I mean, it's silly to do this. Like, what about knight takes d4 here? That was the plan. Thought we were picking off a pawn. Shadow government, shadow pressure. I was talking about shadow pressure. It's a new chess term. Well, you got to defend b2. It's actually tempting to take here with a pawn, but I don't know, man. Probably not best. Developing the pieces. So we managed to win a pawn for whatever it's worth. That's actually not a bad exchange for him. He gets king f2, some control of d4. I don't think the pawn is that much of a weakness. So I think that exchange was actually fairly reasonable. I'm going to put my king on e5 here. And then oppose the c file, I guess. Guys, we have time for one more game after this. I think this ending should be winning. I could be wrong. Been known to be wrong a lot. That move is not good. Excuse me, guys, for the coughing. I've got pretty strong remnants of my cold, but you're letting me fix the pawn on a white square on g4. I think that's a serious mistake, because that's going to be like long-term problem. You don't want to have your pawns fixed on white squares. Yeah, now you're doing the right thing over there. But if I play f5, this is actually not that easy for me to win. Maybe d4. Tricky. Now I'm threatening the g-pawn. And now I get king penetration. Very powerful king penetration on d4. Bishop takes, g4 check, wins outright. So Loudmouth, yeah, it wasn't a good endgame technique. He lost the pawn in the opening. He needed to play a3 probably at some point, but looks like he has left the building. Guys, last game. It's problematic to have a greater fear of loss than a will to win. Yeah, it's been a huge battle for me. I just hate losing more than I want to win, and it's not really the optimal makeup. Thanks for the game. Yeah, I think this is instructive. You know, if I go with the very obvious move knight b4, I think I would have had a lot of play. Although there's probably some defense for you even after queen b6. Maybe with accurate play you can hold. I don't think a white should necessarily be losing. Mule Skinner is the last game for today. We're going to be playing white, and We haven't played knight f3, I don't think. But this is one of the problems, like, I have never made a grandmaster norm. Because my style is like not very conservative, but more geared not to lose. Interesting opening Mule Skinner. I have a story about this. I was intending to play against a player who's very solid with white, and I've never played this opening in my life, but there's this guy, Yulianos, who I had to play, and if he had played c4, I was going to play this for black. Or knight f3, yeah, knight f3, d6. This is actually a nice try. I think you've played this against me once before, but I was going to give this a try. I don't really believe in it, like, objectively that much, but I think that it's a good move to try to get in a complicated position. If you really want to win with black against a solid player, it's not easy to do that, especially against like knight f3 and c4. So this variation with d6 and bishop g4, kind of one of the only like really interesting ways I think that black can kind of get out of the main lines, mainline openings. Against c4 knight f3 players in particular, it's very, very hard to get like a complicated position where you can play for a win as black. So doing this Wade defense type thing, I mean, normally you see it against e4, but against c4 knight f3 is interesting. But I think that black has to be careful not to routinely play like it's a King's Indian with their bishop on g4. But I think that's one of the reasons why I never made a GM norm, because I'm not uncompromising enough. You know, I need too many draws and not enough like playing for a win at all cost type of stuff. If you want to make a fantastic result, you should be willing to lose some games, you know. Be more streaky, like win a lot of games, lose a lot of games, win a lot of games, lose a lot of games, rather than like make a lot of draws, which is what my results tend to be, like more draws than wins and losses. So because I play fairly correctly and stable and solid chess. If you want to have really fantastic results, I guess you just need to take more risks. Interesting setup. Yeah, I like the c6. Objectively, white's better. Now, yeah, it's kind of like a, if this pawn were back here, we would have a normal thing where white does like h3, g4, queen e2, but I've played c4, so this is actually more like a kind of King's Indian or weird Slav where I have an extra tempo or something. If he plays d5, but I like the way that black played this. This is, as I said, a good way for black to try to play for a win or get an interesting position against these players who are real solid with knight f3 and c4. I would be willing to play this myself with black. I think I saw my colleague Alexander Ivanov play this with black recently. It wasn't something that he normally did, but in one of the last tournaments I played in the US, I actually saw him do this with black. He added to his repertoire. Here I'm thinking about like bishop e3, d5, e5. Or maybe bishop e2. I'm really not sure what the best move is for white here. Wow, bishop e7, that's fairly conservative. Castles. The problem is, I'm afraid he's going to play d5 at some point and end up with a structure where his like Caro-Kann type bishop is outside the pawn chain. So it's really a question of how we deal with that sort of thing. Let's just castle and some different options here. I've definitely seen a Copian or somebody like that play knight g5 in a similar situation, trading the white squared bishops. Knight e1 also. I guess the question is after like knight g5, bishop takes e2, queen takes e2. It's more or less like a Slav. d5, e5, knight d7, maybe f4. But it may be, again, one of the situations where in a closed structure, you probably don't want to overvalue the bishops too much. This is going to be a closed position, so I think keeping the knights on the board is probably good. Any kind of King's Indian type formation should be good for white, because he's got dark square pawns and a dark squared bishop. In the Slav type positions, he's got spatial disadvantage. That's the question, is how much that stands for, really. Every weekday, same time. You just registered on lichess a few days ago. Anyway, guys, yeah. So I was away for over a week, but I'm normally streaming every weekday exactly. So here, you know, the question is like taking on d5 with a c pawn might give black a good square for his knight at c6. That's why we might normally want to think twice about that. Maybe unavoidable. And black's very solid here. I don't know if I can avoid it ultimately. I can play e5, knight fd7, and then either queen h5 or the queen h5. I don't know, man. Is that enough? Maybe just f4. You know, this is. I'm not that happy about making this exchange toward the center. It's normally okay, exchange toward the center, but as I said, I don't like his knight getting a good square. This looks a lot like a Slav, like a mainline Slav, where some really strong grandmasters can prove some advantage here with a space advantage, but it's not easy. Maybe I can whip up some kind of an attack, like rook d3, rook h3. I don't think there's any other option here. Sometimes there's piece sacrifices on the pawn chain. Whoops. You know, there may be some kind of piece sacrifices, but I don't see anything here. Queen h5, h6, or bishop takes g5 is the big question. f4. I mean, I think f4 is the better move, though. This has to be critical. If you look at games in the mainline Slav, where you have really strong players playing white, like Belyavsky, they'll play these kind of positions like monsters. Bishop e3. So my bad bishop, but a lot of space. There is also the f5 f5 type of idea. Mule Skinner is playing unbelievably fast. But he does have the advantage of listening to my comments, so I don't know. A lot of people ask me why I don't play rated games, but yeah, this is the last game today, guys. I gotta go. It's just that, you know, I'm giving a kind of big odds in terms of having to spend time talking, and also people can use what I say to plan their moves. So from the competitive standpoint, it's not really fair. I'm at a huge disadvantage if we play like rated type games. Here he could try some kind of competitive play. I was looking at, what was I looking at? Wow, bishop takes g5 and like knight takes e5. Bishop takes g5, f takes g5, knight takes e5, d takes e5, followed by d4. That's pretty interesting. Now, the question is he actually threatening anything here? You know, because knight takes f2 or d4 looks a little dangerous. We also, well, we can't really play f5. I mean, I guess d4 is the problem. King h1 is a useful move that I definitely like. We can always play that. You never go wrong with king h1. He also has to watch for intermezzos. You know, with mate threats on h7 like queen d3. Plays knight takes d4, queen d3, maybe just resigns. It's not so easy. His queen also just took away like his only square for the d7 knight, so I'm not sure, you know, that was necessarily the right idea. You know, on the positive side, maybe in some variations, his queen defends the e6 pawn laterally. He also has some positional ideas with queen b6. I don't know. I'm not sure about this. Yeah, that position, okay, g6 is a pretty solid move. We should have a real strong attack here, I would think. Is it enough, though? Queen g4, rook f3. We go for it here. This is a little bit over the top. Okay, well, I don't know if this is good enough. Very risky play by me. Would have been better to play something else, like maybe rook d1, just securing the d4 pawn. I think queen g4 is too aggressive. It's not this pawn I'm worried about so much. I'm sacrificing the b2 pawn here, and I don't know that I have enough play. I mean, maybe we have f5 at some point. But it's not going to be easy. It's interesting to like sack a rook on f5. Black has all sorts of possible moves. I don't think this is really sound, though. Mule Skinner played a very good opening, and his position is solid. And even queen a6 instead of g6. I thought That's a very solid way of playing it and giving his knight the b6 square. But this is also okay. Now h6 is got to be like losing. Why h6? Why not queen takes b2? And I don't really have any play. I have knight takes d5 there. Never mind. So I have knight takes d5 if queen takes b2. Okay, I missed that. Well, he's got counter tactics. Knight takes e6, knight takes e5. Still, it should be good for me. His king side is very weakened. So if queen takes b2, knight takes d5, probably better for white. Maybe queen g4 wasn't so bad, but it's a very risky move to play with very little time. What do you think the tiebreaker between Carlsen and Karyakin? Surprised by Karyakin? Well, I'm no longer surprised by Karyakin. Carlsen has been unimpressive, but we had a long discussion about this in the beginning of the stream. I think the 12-game match lends itself to the players being fearful of taking any risk. So, I mean, I kind of blame the system rather than the players, to be honest. But Karyakin's been impressive, solid, yeah. But I think that neither side, like, by nature, wants to take any risk. What's going on here? I wanted to have a little bit of fun. But f5 is a thematic move. Queen there. Well, can we break through? He can trade queens, but his position is in ruins. Okay, that's a sensible move. Oh, he's hanging his queen or not. Okay, never mind. All right, guys, interesting game, Mule Skinner. Maybe my queen g4 was okay, actually. But I think that black's position... You could have played, for example, like queen a6. Anyway, guys, why didn't he take your e6 knight? Well, I'm getting a piece back and stuff. I mean, his king side's all broken. It's looking good for white. Even if the material is relatively even. I think my king is just much safer. So, I don't know what to do there. I think white was better. We'll see you guys later. Tomorrow is Weird Wednesday. We'll be back with Blitz and Classical Chess tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thanks for joining me. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. If you guys can support the stream with a PayPal donation, it's also much appreciated. And I do thank those of you who have done so. So we'll be back every day this week, 10 a.m. and Sunday as well with a simul stream, 6:30 p.m. CET. Thanks, Jeroen, and thanks everybody for tuning in today. Glad to be back streaming with you guys. Bye-bye.